The chiropractor said because of how chiropractic works, you may experience relief of these other health issues. And I just looked at him and I was like, just fix my back. The other health issues started to clear up, which was previously thought to be an impossibility. I'm not the kind of guy who wants to just tell my family and friends. I wanted the world to know. I remember throwing the medications in the garbage and never looking back. And here we are 25 years later. 8 years of knowledge you're trying to cram into 5 minutes. There's a disconnect between what chiropractors know and what people already, quote, know. Bridging that gap is where the difficulty is. 90% of what chiropractors do is finding the origin of symptoms. It's all downhill from there because you're now focusing on the right problem. The body accumulates imbalances throughout your life. Birth is extremely stressful on the body. You come out head first. There's twisting, there's pulling. By the time you hit mama's arms, it's an absolute train wreck. Sitting at a desk all day suddenly aggravates an imbalance that's just waiting for the right trigger, starts to cause those symptoms. How do I sit up straighter? Balance is really what the problem is, not the aesthetic of the posture.
Posture doesn't have to be worked on.
It's automatic, and if it's not, something's wrong. In the optimum, posture is perfect.
Hey, fitness and health fans. It's time to get your game on and crush it with Coach Marghella in another episode of Sporting Good Fitness. Join us for the podcast that will coach you from the sidelines to keep you on your game no matter what health or fitness game you play.
Hey, I'm Coach Marghella. I'm Sporting Good Fitness. What are you sporting?
Hey, Coach Marghella, what do you have for us today?
Hey everyone, welcome back to Sporting Good Posture with Coach Marghella. And today I'm here with a special guest, a good friend of mine, Frank Sardella. And I've known Frank for about 6 years now. He's actually been advocating chiropractic for longer than I've been almost alive here. And he's a great patient and a great advocate. He's actually the producer behind my podcast, and he's been doing that with me for the last couple of years. Thank you for being on the show today, and welcome.
Thanks, Doc. It's really good to be here on your show. A little bit surreal, though. You know, I'm usually behind the camera, so to speak, so it's good to be out in front.
Absolutely. Well, we've been talking a lot lately, and I know you have a great story to share, and I really thought it was important for people to hear that. So
yeah,
I just wanted to ask you really, what got you into chiropractic years ago?
You know, it's funny because it's probably the second most asked question that I get. The first most asked question that I get is, why aren't you a chiropractor? But I'm sure this interview will probably lead to that. But as far as getting into chiropractic, just to state it clearly, I'm not a chiropractor, but I am an advocate of the profession for nearly 25 years now. And over 25 years ago, my health was in a pretty downward trend. And just so you know, I knew nothing about chiropractic other than I had heard some things. I was young in my 20s, so I was very steeped in the medical model. I was raised on, you wait till you get sick, you go to the doctor, you take medicine, that kind of thing. And when my health started going downward and started going to doctors and specialists and started getting on medication after medication, it seemed in my mid to late 20s that perhaps I might not live to see age 30, and I really had that consideration. Going from doctor to doctor, and these specialists couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, but they kept putting me on medication, and then I was taking medications to handle the symptoms of other medications, and it was really, it was terrible. It was really a bad time in my life. I had been out of work because I, was losing too many days, and anyway, fortunate enough for me, residual from a car accident, I had back pain. And my girlfriend at the time knew I knew some chiropractors in the area and got tired of me complaining about my back pain. And she was finally like, why don't you just go see those guys? So I did, and it turned out to be, one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. And I saw the chiropractor. And Doc, I know you know this story, but just to share it with everybody, the chiropractor, after he found out my symptoms, said, listen, because of how chiropractic works and how the body works, I just want you to know you may experience relief of these other health issues that are going on with you. And I just looked at him and I was like, Doc, just fix my back, man. And
well, you make a good point, because a lot of people don't realize that. So what did you see besides feeling better with your back? What else were you experiencing?
Well, that's the thing. I really just took that with a grain of salt. And it was pretty intense in the beginning because I was kind of a mess. I actually had to go 7 days in a row my first week. That's how messed up I was.
Oh, wow.
But by the time I got well into my treatment program, not only had my symptoms begun to disappear early on, but the other health issues started to clear up until they were absolutely gone without a trace. which was previously thought to be an impossibility. So obviously I did live to see my 30th birthday, and one of my favorite stories to tell is at the conclusion of all that, I went to their staff meeting at lunchtime. They had this big meeting with all the staff every day, and I remember I had my medications, and after thanking the staff, I remember throwing the medications in the garbage can and never looking back, and here we are 25 years later without a single recurrence or need for medication. I've never really had to rely on medication again, for any such thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was life-changing, to say the least. And just like any other patient would do, I wanted to tell everybody. I was like, why don't more people know about what chiropractic actually is? Because it isn't just getting adjusted and going 3 times a week for the rest of your life. As a matter of fact, right now, if I get adjusted once a year, it's a lot. But the bottom line is there was something there to be known that I saw in the world at the time, especially at the time before the internet, that nobody really knew about it. And I'm not the kind of guy who wants to just tell everybody, as in my family and friends. I wanted the world to know. So I sort of got into advocacy sort of through that avenue, and the story kind of goes on from there. And fast forward to today, and here I am, one of the foremost speakers on chiropractic, helping chiropractors actually get their message out there through podcasting and direct public awareness and that kind of thing. And obviously I'm producing your show, and you're doing a great job getting the word out there as well. And that's really the story.
That's quite a history there. The process also of you, showing me a more true purpose of the profession and really make it where it's something that I want to really strive to get better at and really help more people, because they don't know really what they don't know, if you can put it in those kind of words.
That's true.
Because they just don't understand there's more to it, like you said, than just, my back hurts or my neck hurts or,
right.
I have a headache or whatever. So
yeah,
it's really opened my eyes.
The foremost thing that I found is that you guys go to school for, I don't know how long.
About 8 years total between college and grad school.
Yeah, exactly. So between all of that, you guys are so into the technical of the healing portion of what you do, and actually, more importantly, the most neglected thing, the diagnostic portion, which actually everyone should know is the foremost, most effective thing about chiropractic, is the intense diagnostic arm of it. It can't be underemphasized, but you guys spend so much time on that I agree. You neglect to figure out what the disconnect is between what you know and what the public knows. You obviously know what the public doesn't know, and the public doesn't know what you know, but you also don't exactly know the full breadth of what you know. And that's really what I found, because when I tried to communicate chiropractic, I did it in a very different way than chiropractors were. They were coming very much from the technical, and it was just not being understood. But having come through that process, having healed and having felt the changes myself and been self-aware, I was able to better communicate. I always tell people I have an edge that I'm not a chiropractor, that I don't know particularly the technical that you know, but I sort of know the results of what you do. And I was able to look at the process and really be able to communicate to the public about that process in just a more impactful way than, let's say, what a chiropractor would be able to do by just talking tech. And correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, you got 8 years of knowledge you're trying to cram into 5 minutes with somebody, and it just never works, right?
It's true, and that's the hard part, is that at school they teach you really well how to take x-rays, do all the technical part of it, but as far as communicating the actual philosophy of chiropractic and the actual overall, goal of chiropractic is more than just healing the back pain. Sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle because we're trying to do so much, like you said, in just a minute or two of talking to somebody, that it gets lost in the shuffle.
Absolutely.
So could you elaborate a little bit more about really what the public doesn't know about chiropractic and what chiropractors fail to communicate with their patients? Yeah,
I'd love to. Because, this explains why I'm so adamant in this crusade to get direct to public and make that connection, and also to help chiropractors, because it's not that you guys are faulty or that your knowledge is faulty. What you guys are doing is delivering miracles every day. But not everybody needs, quote-unquote, a miracle. So I've seen chiropractors make a lot of quote-unquote mistakes in trying to communicate that, because the majority of the people don't necessarily need a miracle. per se. And so, communicating the miracle success stories like mine, even I experienced this at first. And trust me, I had to go through all the errors that you guys did. But, I was able to communicate with the public. I'm an artist. I'm a performer. I've always been a stage performer. So I understand about being in front of audiences. I broadcast. I co-host podcasts. I songwrite. I, play music and perform. And so I understand about interaction, and I understand about assuming the audience viewpoint. And from that viewpoint, I was able to really glean, what are the things that go on in people's minds, and then what exists inside their mind already? What kinds of things have they heard? What I feel is that, chiropractors, there's a disconnect between what chiropractors know and what they're trying to communicate and what people already, quote, know, meaning what they've been told or what they've read or whatever. And actually bridging that gap is where the difficulty is. Now, the first difficulty that I found with chiropractors is their lack of understanding of the power of what they know. And that is this. This is what I tell everybody. Now, I don't have statistical numbers to back me up, but Doc, maybe you can back me up in terms of experience. I don't know. You tell me if I'm wrong here. But what I tell the general public when I meet with them on a regular basis is that 90% of what chiropractors do is diagnostic in nature. It's dedicated toward finding the source, the origin of what symptoms are there. Because when you do that, it's simplistic. It's only 10%. It's all downhill from there therapeutically to fix it because you're now focusing on the right problem.
No, I would agree, because the difference between chiropractic and medical doctors is that it's usually treating the symptoms with some kind of medication, where chiropractors now find, okay, at C1, it's rotated to the left, or L5 is rotated to the right, or, you find the subluxations throughout the body. That's where you could treat those areas and fix the actual cause of the problem and know where that nerve root is going that affects the rest of the body.
Exactly. And I also want to thank you for that, because not only did it confirm my 90% factor, but you also proved my point about how chiropractors communicate with the public. And just for the benefit of your audience, the letter C stands for cervical, which is the sort of neck portion or the upper portion of the spine. So when Doc says C1, he means the very first vertebrae in the neck. When he says subluxation, there's another word that gets thrown around chiropractic, but in public circles really means nothing. And sort of people get turned away when they hear words they don't understand or technology they don't understand, right? It becomes boring or uninteresting and you get disinterested. Subluxation just means a displacement of the vertebrae such that it starts interfering with the nerves that are interacting, around the spine. These are things I've always been able to make clear to people. And Doc, you just proved my point there. As far as your answer to my question, you're going right into, and there's nothing wrong with doctors. There's nothing wrong with that. You guys know the deal, and I owe you guys my life in a lot of ways. You saved my life with that, and I hung in there because I was desperate enough. But the average Joe on the street is suffering from things that he thinks that are part of life. And it's
right,
not
quote unquote normal.
Exactly, and wouldn't probably hang in there to get the miracle because they're not desperate enough to get it. And that's what I found out, that the numbers are probably 10% of the people are willing to hang in there through all that tech talk to do something about their problem, but 90% of the people have something, quote, minor, or that comes and goes, or isn't chronic. These are the things that I hear, and I actually screen and lecture to thousands of people a year for the last 25 years. I lost count. There's somewhere over, I think, 25,000 people that I've spoken to and sent to chiropractors, but this is what I found. And what I found is most chiropractors are only getting through to that 10%, and the really good ones, maybe they can push it to 15%. But I was interested when I went out there. I was like, well, what about that 90%? I want that 90%. Everybody needs to know about this, because it's causing people problems down the road. So I think really, right, to answer your question, that's really what I found was wrong with what chiropractors know, and that there are specific things that need to be communicated, which you all know, but you don't realize are the key or more important factors to let them know.
I still find myself using the technical terms that people don't always understand. But we're just so programmed to do it that way that it's just a constant reminder that, hey, we got to do better at communicating, because people aren't going to know what that means unless you explain it in terms they do understand.
And I mean, I've been working with you how long now? 7 years, I think?
Yeah.
And if people only knew the Riot Act, I was going to read you after we get off the air today for doing that after 7 years of working with me.
It was all planned. Yeah. I did it for you.
Exactly. This is a stage act, folks. I'm the producer of the show.
So, Frank, I know you have a lot of experience out in the public. You meet a lot of people with all the events that you do. What do you find that really needs to be communicated better with the public, where they can understand better what chiropractors actually do?
Well, there's a loaded question for you. It's pretty much, the answer is everything. But the way I relate it to the public is in the word imbalance. As you know, you and I have been going over this, especially of late.
Yeah.
And
I love the way you've broken that down for me, too.
And here's the interesting thing. You went to chiropractic school for 8 years. You've been practicing for 12 years now. So, over the 20 years of your life, and plus you were a chiropractic patient before that as an athlete and all that kind of stuff.
That's true.
Which motivated you to go to school in the first place. So you're going on 30 years of knowledge here that, again, you're trying to cram into a 5-minute conversation with somebody. You gained an understanding, but it took me a long time to understand what I know and what's important. So I think it's important to say that, look, I didn't just come out of the gate perfect and say like, oh, chiropractors don't know what they're talking about, and I do. It took me years to figure that out. And this whole thing about imbalance was only recently in that 25-year stretch. Only within the last, let's say, 5 years have I really honed in on the imbalances in the body. And I think what I found most successful in communicating is the fact that, look, the body accumulates imbalances throughout your life. And people are like, what do you mean by imbalance? Imbalance structurally, let's talk about. And let's talk about something relatable that's not related to the spine. How about the arches of the feet, right, Doc? I know you take care of people and you check for that in your practice, right? Because that's a form of imbalance. Like if somebody's flat-footed, how are they going to perform in sports, let alone being on their feet all day at work or something like that?
Exactly.
Another common thing that we see in the profession is people who, quote, have one leg longer than the other, right?
That's right.
It's not anatomically longer, but if you look at how the body is designed, the legs are sort of hanging on the hips. And if you tilt those hips, one leg is going to appear longer or shorter than the other. So imbalances structurally can cause the body to go off balance. But if your hips are off kilter and you have one leg longer than the other, that doesn't necessarily signal you with pain. So imbalances don't come with pain. But imbalances go all the way back to the beginning of life, right? And so one of the most popular things that I talk about that really opens people's eyes, in fact, I see light bulbs go off, is when I talk about it goes all the way back to birth and the fact that the birth process is so stressful. Like birth is extremely stressful on the body that when you're born, okay, most of us think about other people being born when we talk about birth. We think about a mother having a baby or someone we know or maybe somebody having a baby personally. But we forget that we were all born at one point and subject to the stresses of birth. So going all the way back to birth, what happens? You come out head first. Okay, there's nowhere else to grab but the head. The doctor's grabbing you by the head, or the midwife, or whoever it is that's assisting that birth. There's twisting, there's pulling, and by the time you hit mama's arms, it's an absolute train wreck. Doc, am I wrong? I mean, like you're
right, and even on top of that, sometimes they use forceps or even a vacuum if you're stuck. So it's
Forget about it. And not to mention your muscles aren't fully developed yet, so holding your head up is already difficult. So it's going to be very easy to throw you off balance. Now you fast forward a little bit and you're learning to walk. You take little tumbles.
Yeah, big tumbles.
Yeah, exactly, right? You tumble over. But guess what? A lot of that, it doesn't hurt, right? A little kid learning to walk, you see them tumble over, they don't always cry. There's not always pain associated with it, but they collect more imbalances as that occurs. And as those imbalances accrue, you don't necessarily get pain, so you remain unaware of them. So they tend to accrue throughout your life. You're roughhousing a little bit when you're maybe 7 or 8, or you're playing some sports and, or maybe you actually have an injury. You fall off your bike and you skinned your knee and everybody focuses in on the knee, but what about the shock to the body and more imbalances that accrue? So they accrue throughout your life. Now, later in life, a lot of people think, hey, well, I carry all my stress in my shoulders, but I think that's because I sit at a desk all day, or I think that's because I carry a heavy bag. And those things are definitely factors. It's undeniable. But the majority of the people who carry a heavy bag or the majority of the people who sit at a desk all day don't have those symptoms, which makes them not normal. But here's what happens. Those accrue throughout your life, and then something innocuous like sitting at a desk all day that shouldn't cause problems suddenly aggravates an imbalance that's already been sitting there just waiting for the right trigger in the environment, and then in turn, in a roundabout way, starts to cause those symptoms. Again, not chronic or minor. And this is really what I found has to be gotten into the public's thick skull, so to speak, because it's something that not even I understood and not even chiropractors tend to realize in terms of imbalance.
It really took me in a different direction of how I started explaining things to people, because I actually go out a lot and speak to corporations and do lunch, breakfast workshops with banks and businesses in the area. And when you started talking to me about that, it made a lot of sense because, like you said, a lot of people go through that and then they think, oh, I've been sitting at a desk and that's what caused my problem. But it is the accumulation of, minor injuries or sometimes major injuries over a number of years, because the majority of people don't have that when they sit at a desk. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, it plays a role in what people think that really is the cause of the problem. And I know that you've really honed in on those causes. And what have you found as the major cause and the major factor in a lot of these problems that you're seeing with like the corporate environment?
Yeah. There is one symptom that we all know about in chiropractic, we've known about for years, that the public has been largely disinterested in for years and is now starting to come back around and become more popular again, and that is posture. And I've noticed of late a lot more of these people I meet, especially working people. I go to a lot of corporations and speak to a lot of these corporate people, and they're more stressed than when I was doing this 20 years ago. Then far less symptomology than what we're seeing now. But
absolutely,
what I found is that generation seems to be, oddly enough, more aware of posture issues, but no connection has been made by any of us that posture is actually a symptom. Remember I said when people go through life and they accrue these imbalances through whatever activities made them occur, they're not aware of it because pain doesn't come with it, and we only associate problems with pain. But posture has been sitting there all the time, and a lot of people are aware, I have bad posture, like my shoulders roll forward, or I don't like how my head sits on my neck, or I can tell I have a little twist, or my shoulders aren't level, my hem on my skirt always looks off, or my pant hems have to be different, I have one leg longer than the other. People notice these issues, but they don't actually equate that with an imbalance. But if you think about it, it's just like, why is one leg longer than the other? Well, it's not anatomically longer. It's just that the legs hang on the hips, and if the hips are displaced, one leg is going to hang lower than the other, and it's going to look like a different length, and you're going to lean to one side. You're going to lean toward the shorter leg. But why are the hips off kilter? They're connected up at the spine, and if something in the lower spine or anywhere else in the spine, like in the extreme case of like a scoliosis of the spine, which is a sideways curvature, if the spine is curved, then the shoulders, which should be at right angles to it, are going to actually tilt off the horizontal. So are the hips. So these imbalances, that's what people they don't look deeper into posture. They look at it as an aesthetic and say, well, I have terrible posture. How do I sit up straighter? The thing is, you can correct your posture all you want. In fact, I saw this device on the internet, Doc. Have you seen this thing? You put it on your shoulders and it pulls your shoulders back.
I've seen that too.
And it's like
a lot of
miracle
questions
posture.
about that.
But then you got to wear this brace for your entire life. But even if you train yourself to do it, you have to hold your muscles in that place constantly. You're basically working against an imbalance, and you're not treating the imbalance that's causing it. And the imbalance is really what the problem is, not the aesthetic of the posture. It doesn't matter that you roll forward. What matters is the thing that's causing you to roll forward is what's going to cause you problems, and you're only covering it up. That's no better than just getting a massage weekly, or even taking a painkiller for a problem. Putting one of those braces on to correct your posture. You really have to look at why is the posture off, and that's really what my crusade has been. And I find that people really relate to posture like that. They can self-check themselves in the mirror. Many of them that I talk to already are aware of it, or they've at least been told by somebody else, well, your posture is terrible,
Yep. And it's something that people, my mom told me to sit up straight, or, I always try to work on my posture. But really, posture is something that doesn't have to be worked on. It should just be you're sitting up straight.
It's automatic.
Exactly.
Posture is automatic, and if it's not, something's wrong, and you need to find the something that's wrong. You just hit it right on the head. I'm so proud of you. You obviously learned something in the 7 years we've been working together.
I learned a couple things.
That's awesome.
So, Frank, when you hear these things and you're at one of these health fairs or you're at an event or you're out in public, what do you usually tell somebody when they ask you those questions about posture or about, those imbalances that they might have?
It's pretty simple. And honestly, in my advocacy, what I found out is I'm not really advocating chiropractic per se. What my advocacy is about self-awareness, because when I say a chiropractor saved my life, I have to be honest with you, and no offense, but it's not the chiropractic adjustment that saved my life. Yes, the therapy was life-saving. Trust me. But my acceptance of the therapy was predicated upon my understanding that I could be in control of my health, that the body has a natural ability to heal itself, and it also has a natural ability to be well in the first place. In fact, in the optimum is well. Just like in the optimum, posture is perfect.
That's a really good point.
So my point that I make is to be more self-aware, and to do that before you go to Google or before you ask a wellness professional, which you should always see someone like Dr. Marghella to really assess this for you. Even when you go see a wellness professional like Dr. Marghella, you actually need to sort of be in the driver's seat with yourself and be self-aware, because when the doctor asks you those questions, he can only physically examine so much, but you're going to have to introvert a little bit at some point and notice what's going on, because in the end, you're the only one who can be aware of certain things. No doctor, even with exploratory surgery, can tell as much about you as you can potentially know. And that's what chiropractic gave me. And that's all I want to communicate to people. So my message is to be self-aware. So how do you, without self-diagnosing per se, but sort of pre-diagnose, meaning what direction you want to go in and what wellness professional you should see, the first thing you want to start with is posture, and say, not always about correcting. I always start off every talk I do for chiropractic, when I go to a corporation and I do a talk, let's say on stress or ergonomics, I'm always represented by a chiropractor, and chiropractors all over the world support me to go out and do this. And the first thing I tell the group is, I'm A, not here to sell you on chiropractic, and B, as a matter of fact, I don't recommend anyone here go for chiropractic, massage, physical therapy, acupuncture, yoga, stretching, weightlifting routine, any of that stuff, because if you don't do the 90% first, and that's find the imbalances that are setting everything off, you're at best stabbing in the dark, and B, you could be making matters worse because you're just guessing. And the best trained of chiropractors do not guess. They bet on a sure thing is really what it is. They don't gamble with your health and say, let's try this. They zero in on the source and the origin. So for somebody or anybody, listening to your show or, within your area there or anywhere in the world, my advice is to be self-aware. Start by looking at posture. Start by looking at all of the symptoms you have, even if you think they're unrelated, and look at the collective of it and say, what's wrong with that? What imbalances might I have? And probably the foremost thing that you can do, besides just looking in the mirror at your own posture or taking a picture of yourself, would be to expand your timeline. Meaning, the first thing I do when I meet somebody in public, and I'm trying to determine whether they should go to the chiropractor or not, is what I call expand their timeline. I ask them not just what's going on now. They're talking about, okay, well, I sit at a desk all day. I have neck and shoulder pain. Which is the majority. Almost everybody says that. I carry my stress in my shoulders. I tend to hold my stress in my left shoulder, right? So they tell me that, but then I'm usually asking them, I want to expand it a little bit and say, well, what do you do besides work? Do you jump out of airplanes? Do you climb mountains? Do you are you working out? Are you doing different activities?
Flipping truck tires.
Yeah, exactly. Flipping truck tires. And that's the thing. They might say, well, I work out. Well, I'll say, well, are you flipping truck tires or are you just going on the elliptical for 15 minutes a day? So I want to look at their activity level, and that's something you can be self-aware of. What is your activity level outside of working and the other things that you do? Well, I have 2 kids. One is a toddler, and I'm carrying her on my hip all the time and constantly having to pick her up and whatever. Or maybe if you're a nurse and you're running around the floor all the time lifting patients and yada, yada. There's a lot of different factors you can look at in your current environment, but then expanding the timeline. I'm always asking people, did you play sports in college or high school? What was your activity like back then? Did you ever have any accidents, injuries, falls, stumbles, major surgeries, any of those things, there's a cumulative set of experience that's unique to every single individual, and no two individuals are alike. So you have to go through that with everyone. But there's no reason why you can't be self-aware and sort of pre-examine yourself by examining your life and your timeline and saying, wow, so I have these posture issues. I did have these things, and I played soccer in high school and I had that knee injury. And we only focused on the knee, but when I got that knee injury, I fell to the ground and my body was pretty jarred by shock. And I wonder what kind of imbalances I could have accrued then. Or I was a stressful birth, or I was a premature baby. We all have these different experiences, and I think that if somebody were to be able to be a little self-aware, they would want to come to someone like you. And if I could just get every chiropractor like you, Doc, to understand that when people come to them, to help them further establish that timeline, and then get them to understand that 90% of what you need to do is putting therapy to the side and not even thinking about it. And correct me if I'm wrong, oftentimes, not the majority of times, but oftentimes, they don't even need much therapy at all once you find that source and origin.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because you're right. It is about expanding the timeline. And one of the things that I see with people is you're kind of stuck in the moment. Oh, my back hurts now, or my neck hurts now, or this headache is a problem right now. And one of the things I always ask people is, well, when was the first time ever that you had that pain?
Yeah.
And I see the wheels turn when I ask that question, because
that's true.
They think back and they're like, actually it started when I was in high school, or it started when I was a kid, or it started in college, and now they're in their 40s or 50s. And they realize this is more than just the last couple of months that's been bothering me. This is going on 20, 30 years.
100%. And, it's funny because when I ask people that question, they say, well, I have migraine headaches. And I say, how long have you had them? And they say years. And I say, well, how many years? Is it 1 year? Is it 10 years? All your life? And they say, it's about 2 years. The first question I ask is, what was going on in your life 2 years ago? There's another self-assessment question you can ask yourself. When did they start? And what was going on in my life at the time? What were my years leading up to that like? These are questions you can ask yourself that will lead you to a chiropractor. But, my message to the world, Doc, is if you go to a chiropractor, it's not about treatment, it's about finding out. And I think that's the fundamental truth. If we could get it all out there, people would have a lot less symptoms in general.
And I do feel chiropractors are better than average doing that, because they do focus on the cause. That really is what the philosophy behind chiropractic is: find the cause of the problem so you know how to fix it. And
that's what the miracles are that you deliver. It's not the fact that a person bounced back to wellness when all hope was lost and you didn't think you were going to live to see age 30. It puts you in control of your health by getting you to know the answer. And the answer itself, finding the answer, finding the source, the origin, that's the real miracle of chiropractic.
Just even for me, when I went as a teenager, I went because I had back pain from football, but really I ended up seeing my immune system was better. I stopped missing school. My acid reflux got better. Mm-hmm. I just felt more energy. I got better sleep. So I didn't even think of that, when I first went, but that was other things I noticed really in the first month or so of going there that really got better. And I felt a huge difference in my life.
Yeah, man. And that's right there is the exact evidence of why I insisted that you start Sporting Good Posture and that you podcast this, man. It's that kind of passion that we need to have more of.
With you talking about this and realizing that as I've gone out too, because I do, a lot of public speaking events and everything, people are coming to me and saying, I hold my stress here and I hold my stress there, and I notice my posture is poor. I notice my posture this and that. And it really is coming back around, like you said, where people are more aware of it and seeing the connection to bad posture equals poor health.
That's right.
So, Frank, you've brought up a lot of good points today, and really not only teaching me, but also teaching the public. I mean, you've gone straight to public with these things, and when you're at these events, you're at these talks that you do, you're really impacting a lot of lives. And I give you a lot of credit for going out and doing this over the last 25 years or so, because there hasn't been as many advocates for chiropractic. And just helping chiropractors in general realize how to communicate better this cause and imbalance and posture issue that are so prevalent, and realizing that it does go back on a timeline. It is an accumulation over years. It's not just, what happened, I bent over yesterday and now my back hurts. It's really that was there and that just kind of set it off, but it's been there for a number of years. I really appreciate you helping me and really get the word out. The one thing I wanted to ask you was, how can people get in touch with you, or how can they follow you on, what you've done for the profession and, how to learn more about chiropractic in general.
Well, first of all, thank you for that. And not only has it been a pleasure doing what I do, but I feel it's a duty, and I feel like it's all of our duty. So, and I'm getting out there with a direct-to-public campaign. I've been going through chiropractors for a couple of decades merely because the channels didn't exist to get direct to public, and you guys were my channel and still are my channel to get to the public. But with social media, that's great, and that segues nicely into how to follow me and what the impetus is behind this. I can be found as a producer on a lot of podcast episodes, and I will be putting more and more of that on my various websites. But if you want to follow me, I have set up for this crusade a podcast called The Wellness Broadcast, and we're still at this taping working on putting it together. But you can follow me on Instagram at The Wellness Broadcast, and thewellnessbroadcast.com will be the website for that. Those places are where I'm going to be announcing all the various online events I'll be doing, live events, what types of episodes of the show and the blog that we'll be posting, and there's just going to be a wealth of knowledge. This is a massive public education campaign. I'm very excited. And listen, Doc, I want to thank you for pulling me out from behind the camera here, so to speak, and allowing me to do this, because this is why I produce shows like yours. I really want to get the word out there, and you guys help me do that, so I want to thank you right back for doing that.
You've helped me shift my focus and be a better communicator when I'm out speaking at these events. And I've noticed, I see the light bulbs go off as you always talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see it more, not only when I'm at events, but in my office, because I'm asking the right questions and I'm getting the right communication with the person so that they really see it is an imbalance that's been there for a while, and it is a timeline of small and large injuries. And I really feel like you've opened my eyes to expand that better for everybody that I come in contact with.
Been my pleasure to do it, and it continues to be a pleasure every episode, every coaching call, everything. So my pleasure.
I want to thank everyone again for listening today, and I hope you got a lot out of this. I sure have, and every time I speak to Frank, it just really gets me back in the moment. It gets me back into my purpose of helping patients and just educating the public in general, just to learn a little bit more about chiropractic. The biggest thing is, if you're unsure what's going on, get checked out. And like I said, I feel like chiropractic is the best way to find the cause. They're the best at diagnosing things, and you'll learn exactly what it is, and you'll learn exactly what to do to fix it. Before you take a stab in the dark, it's better just to know exactly what it is. So again, if you want to follow us, you can follow me on my Instagram at Ideal Health Wellness Franklin, and also on Facebook at Ideal Health Wellness Center. And if you'd like to follow this podcast, you go to sportinggoodposture.com. Again, I want to thank you for listening today. This is Coach Marghella. I'm Sporting Good Posture. How about you?
Thank you, Coach Marghella, for another thrilling episode.
Sporting Good Fitness is a broadcast wellness production powered by Ideal Health and Wellness Center in Franklin. Executive producer, Frank Sardella. Dr. Marghella appears courtesy of Ideal Health and Wellness Center, copyright 2018, all rights reserved. For more information, visit sportinggoodfitness.com.